What's going on, everyone? This is the first episode of Road to Ruin. You might ask yourself, what the hell is Road to Ruin? I thought that I subscribed to Everything Went Black. Well, the answer to that question lies in whether or not you've actually been listening to Metal Matters, yet another podcast, part of the Gimme Metal platform. And you'll notice that me and Randy Larsen have been doing shows together for over 2 years. Can you believe it's been over 2 years?
Yeah, actually, it goes back a little earlier if you count our stuff previous.
Right, yes, exactly.
To Metal Matters.
Yep, and kind of as a demo to what we ended up doing on Metal Matters, we had a couple episodes we did on this podcast where we would, bring up topics related to music and, talk about that, dig into some obscure stuff. And then on Metal Matters, we would pick certain records because we only had 60 minutes really to talk about stuff on that platform. So we would limit it to one classic record. And that's how Randy and I started our podcasting career. So now I've left Metal Matters, and it's been taken over by Fred Pissarro and Mike Burdan. And now we're kicking off the new chapter of Everything Went Black. Randy and I are going to be getting together once a month to do these Road to Ruin episodes. And they won't be limited only to metal or extreme music. We're going to talk about pretty much any record, any kind of musical scene or possible record label related stuff. Like it's back in the old days, you were sort of like you would be into like a label's output. So we might talk about AMREP or Touch and Go or stuff like that. Or we might just have subjects about certain artists that we really like, and that's what the show is going to be comprised of. But today, episode 1, we're going to go all the way back to the murky past and talk about how Randy and I met and how long we've known each other, and just talk about the ins and outs of everything and why we're calling this thing Road to Ruin, because I think the name, even though it's the name of Ramones' album, which is a great album, I feel like both of us agree that our pursuit into this circuitous path of trying to make music can be perceived as a road to ruin in some ways.
Maybe even more so for me than you. You've seen it garnered a little more success out of this.
That's a very slippery term, Randy.
due to hard work on your part and me kind of hitching my wagon maybe to some people who didn't want to work as hard. But I'll also shoulder some of that blame.
Yeah, I mean, success is like, getting to make music that you like, yeah. But I still have various jobs I do, and I'm not. It's successful in that I enjoy what I'm doing, but it's not successful in the way that it's like, it's not my main vocation.
Right.
So it's like slippery.
Yeah, I guess I didn't mean monetary success. More like not being on your couch as much as I am.
I definitely like to do things, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So, yeah. So what's your recollection? Because seems to be a disagreement amongst some groups of friends of ours, how me and you actually met, Why would me and you know how we met,
Actually, you know what another notable thing to bring up before we get going? We're doing this in person. This is the first time that you and I have actually been in the same area, the same room, in over a year.
It has been. I think it was January or mid-February, so it has been over a year.
Yes. So this is like a sort of a celebratory thing. You drove down here from Connecticut to New Jersey, and we had some good pizza. We went to Vintage Vinyl, bought some records.
Almost like a normal day.
Yeah, it's almost like a normal day, except it's not a normal day.
Well, no, it's not.
What'd you pick up anyway? I don't remember what you got exactly.
I got a box set by an old Seattle band called the U-Men, which notable to me and you because was also a band that was one of the first AMREP releases, one of our favorite labels, Amphetamine Reptile.
Yep.
I actually just found out recently that Tom Hazelmeyer, the founder of Amphetamine Reptile, did a short stint playing guitar in the U-Men. Did like 3 shows when he was stationed out in Seattle or Washington when he was in the military.
I think it's awesome that Tom Hazelmeyer was he was like a Marine or something like that.
Yeah, dude, everything. The more I find out about that guy, the more I like that guy.
Yeah, he's into like guns and everything.
Yeah, it's just like a dude. You know what I mean? It's not pretentious. So I picked that up. Pretty psyched to get into that. It's like I'm not that familiar with the U-Men, but everything I've heard I've liked, and I don't own any of their stuff. So it was a good thing to grab. I got a couple Melvins reissues, Gluey Porch Treatments, early Melvins record. That's awesome. And I bought a record by a man from Australia called Lubricated Goat.
One of my favorites. Also, a lot of their material came out on AmRep.
Yeah, this one is on Reptilian, but yeah, a lot of the stuff they did is on AmRep. So that was my haul for today. You got something too, right?
I just got one record today. I got the new John Carpenter For, or our Lost Themes For, rather.
Three.
Yeah. See, I don't even know what the fuck I bought. So yeah, that's I'm a big fan of his movies and music, and
Same.
I'm just fascinated with John Carpenter anyway, just in general, and it's good to see he's got a new record out, and someday I'd like to see him live.
I did get the chance to see him live. It was incredible. When he was touring the last time, doing all the themes, from the movies, it was really, really great. But yeah, that new record is awesome. I'm also a huge fan of. It's cool like that this late in life. I mean, I know he's always had this kind of a musical career, scoring a lot of his own movies, but I think in like his 70s, he started making albums of original music, not for movies.
It is kind of cool, and also I feel like he's leaning more heavily into making music than movies right now.
Yeah, it appears that way.
Yeah, so that's fucking inspiring, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I can only hope when I'm at that age, if I make it to that age, that I'm still being productive like that.
And that's vintage vinyl in Fords, New Jersey, man. That's like pretty legendary spot out here. I've been going. I've only lived in Jersey for just about a year now, just under a year, but I've been traveling to that store for over a decade, man. Just when I found out about it, probably in the late '90s, I guess. It was always a stop, coming down here on the way to shows. Maybe if we were like going to play in Philly, we might leave a little early and stop at Vintage Vinyl, buy a couple records, that kind of thing. I remember many weekends, me and Mike Scandato, who I do Necromaniacs with, we would drive down on Saturdays sometimes, spend a bunch of money on records, and it's just like a cool hang. You know what I mean?
Definitely a cool spot. I went there for the first time a couple of years ago. Great place, man. I'll probably be hitting that spot every time I come down.
Hell yeah, man. So right now, what do you think of this coffee, man? We're drinking my right wing coffee, Black Rifle coffee. It's pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's really good. My favorite coffee, I used to like Savage Gold. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Yeah.
It's not around anymore, unfortunately.
Well,
Maybe someday we'll see it.
Maybe
Comeback
someday.
of that. So I've been searching for a go-to coffee since then, but this might be it. It's been recommended by a few other people too.
Yeah, it's
a few other right wingers.
Yeah, right. So anyway, how did we meet, man? It was in the '90s. It was in Boston. I'm trying to remember. You were someone that I was always aware of because I liked cable. And you were friends with, we had a lot of mutual friends. One is Jeff Kashid, who is also another co-host on Necromaniacs and played in the band ISIS and was he was also in Cable for a period of time.
He was a founding member.
Member of Cable. And he was in the band Palms with the dude from Deftones and some of the other ex-ISIS guys. But Jeff and I were briefly played together in a band in Boston. And was my connection to you as like on the friend level, as a guy that when we became friends, I believe it was Jeff was the conduit for that.
Yeah. I hate to give him that credit, but now Jeff has an amazing memory too. Once in a while he's wrong, but 99% of the time he can just remember the smallest details of shit that. So I hate to say he's wrong here, but I was aware of you and had met you briefly before Jeff kind of made the connection between us two. I went to a show in Boston. I'm going to say it was late '93, early '94. It was Caspar Brotzman Massacre, a band we both love. Engine Kid, and the opening band was a band from Boston called Otis, which you were in.
Yeah, I played in that band. I'm going to say, I don't think it was as early as 93. It might have been 94, 95 more.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't, Otis, it's funny when you're playing bands, like you think that the band's like existence spans all these years and stuff. And then you go to realize that the band was only together for like 2.5 years or something,
True.
And I feel like that band was together for a long time, but it really wasn't. I think I moved to Boston in 94. And by the time 97 happened, when 97 rolled around, Otis was done. I already played in 454 Big Block, and I started Anodyne. So it has to be 94. That was one of our earliest shows, actually.
Was it really? Okay.
Yeah. That wasn't like our first show, obviously. But
Right,
it was
right,
like
right.
one of the first, within the first several months of us being a band, we played that.
Did you have a record out or any kind of release out by then?
We just had a demo out at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no record or anything.
All right. Well, my time might be a little skewed on that. Either way, it was before our friend Jeff moved to Boston.
Yeah, because I didn't meet Jeff until probably 96, I imagine.
Yeah, because I think he moved to Boston in the end of the summer of 96.
Yeah.
So, I was at that show, saw the opening band, and I dug it, man. It reminded me a lot of Helmet.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why we ripped them off like hardcore. So, yeah.
You're not the only ones,
Yeah.
So, I watched your set, and you're hanging out. I think you're at the bar. I think you were hammered, actually, at the bar.
Definitely not at that time, man.
I just remember going up and saying, "Hey, man, I enjoyed that, good set." And you're probably like, yeah, "Who the fuck cares? Who are you? Get away from me." But that was my first introduction to knowing who you were and that you played in bands and stuff. And then, yes, a few years later, shortly after, we would reconnect through Jeff or whatever. I think the first time we actually had a conversation is the day I moved up to Boston. I moved up to Boston in the summer of 98 to play second guitar in ISIS.
Yes.
For a brief time. But I moved into the Hydra Head Records house with Jeff and Aaron. Chris Mearshak was living there as well at the time. Original keyboard player for ISIS. And we lived up on Mission Hill in Roxbury, which back then was a little different than it is now.
Yeah, I live down the street from you guys.
Yeah, you're at like the bottom of the hill, or like halfway up the hill.
Calumet Street, yeah.
But I remember there was a brutally hot day, man. And I walked down to the store, and I'm walking back up the hill, and you're on the sidewalk, like, standing there, sweating like profusely, with a sock with an 8-ball in it. And I kind of recognized you. I mean, I didn't know where I knew you from, but I knew that I knew you, and I knew that you were like, into hardcore metal and shit. I knew we somehow knew each other.
Right.
So I was like, "Hey, what's up, man?" I don't remember how the introduction went from there, but you're like, "Yeah, this guy just tried to fucking roll me, man."
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
It was a pretty intense meeting.
Yeah.
And then you're like, "Yeah, you want to come inside for a minute, hang out?" We went and hung out, and it was like real weird in there, dark, and like
that time of my life was very, very weird. It was, that house. It's funny because on an earlier version of this podcast, I had Anthony Papalardo, who's a good friend of mine, actually, on this show. That 38 Calumet Street address was like kind of an infamous place, actually. Over more so after I left, because all those guys that did the the New York Sucks or Yankee Sucks guys, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, they started the t-shirt, bootlegging t-shirts.
That existed, but then those guys moved into that house, and they're all like these ex-straight edge guys, right? And then they just went crazy together and started doing like mad like drugs and got into all this like derelict behavior, which I have to say that I believe that I'm not going to take all the credit for it, but I feel like the guys in my little circle were probably an influence on them, as far as like the hooliganism that happened around that time.
Well, you guys, that building, was it 3 floors, and all 3 floors were like punk and hardcore dudes.
There used to be a family that lived in there too, but they moved out.
Oh, they must have been psyched.
Yeah, then like the first floor was Rama Mayo, who did Big Wheel Recreations, that label.
Right. Remember that?
Then the second floor and the third floor were derelicts, like guys like my friends and me, and like, you know, it was just bad news guys. You know what I mean?
So you think you and your friends maybe turn these guys to the dark side?
I think so. I'm not gonna say, because like during that whole period of my life, I was you know, I never really called myself straight edge, but I was like clean living guy. You know, I didn't drink, I didn't do anything, and but I wasn't like those guys that were in 10-yard fight or in my eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I always like I knew you weren't a big partier and stuff, you know, drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. But I always thought of you as more of like the Rollins kind of camp.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
Rollins is like a clean living guy too, but he's not like a straight edge kid.
Right, exactly.
Champion sweatshirts.
Yeah, you know, like I was more into the dark side. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like, you know, but once again, I wasn't like, you know, but I also wasn't telling people not to do all that stuff either. You know what I mean?
Right.
And there was like that whole movement in Boston of straight edge. Like there was like, you know, and I like those dudes, like the 10-yard fight guys are friends. And like, you know, I didn't really know the In My Eyes guys that well. I got to know Papalardo years later, but you know, they're good guys, you know, whatever. But they were more on the scene stuff, you know. And I think
right
at that time I was in my late 20s, so I was out of the scene, like the hardcore scene per se.
Yeah.
And I was trying to do other shit, even though the stuff that I was doing was still in the hardcore scene, but it was like not like youth crew type shit. You know what I mean?
Right. I think we were both kind of on the same path.
Yeah, like Cable was the same kind of story. We were influenced by Neurosis, Today's the Day, and Unsane, and like stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I started Cable. The Cable is a band I did off and on for years and years. For those of you who don't know, I kind of started that band as a reaction to like hardcore being pretty dumb, getting pretty dumb.
Right.
You know, a lot of it getting pretty dumb. I didn't want to be in like a band, be really associated with what hardcore was turning into in my eyes. You know, just wasn't my thing. So yeah, it's funny. Like I always find, I'm not referencing these Boston guys at all, but because I know some other people. I'm not going to mention any names, but it always seems like straight edge dudes, man. When they break edge, they go all in, man.
Oh yeah, those guys go nuts, man.
Some of the sketchiest fucking stories I know about people were like diehard straight edge people, and then when they weren't, they probably should have just stayed straight edge, you know.
I mean, my ideas on that stuff, though, man. It's like it's cool to. I've always more been about just like freedom, you know, like any. I never really liked groups, you know, or gang mentality, because a lot of that just it's like conformity. Like that's why like. One of the things I hated about Youth Crew is how everyone fucking looked exactly the same. You know what I mean? Like shaved head, champion sweatshirt, you know, like And just to me, it just seemed too uniform and too conformist, like the whole thing. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like I guess like even though like you know maybe creatively I don't feel that much affinity to punk music, but that was like the first like outside shit that I really got into, and it wasn't hardcore. It was like bands like X, you know, I mean Black Flag, which is I guess a hardcore band, but they have like a very individualistic mentality, you know what I mean? Like Flipper, like that kind of stuff, you know. And then to me, like the later shit, like the Youth Crew stuff was like, oh wow, now it's like dudes that play football and like guys that like dress like they're going to basketball practice are part of this like punk scene. And I just wasn't that into it, really. You know what I mean? It was like,
sure, I could see that.
Know, I there were not too many. There weren't really a lot of like girls involved in that stuff, and you know, I was like a young guy, man. So I wanted to hang. I had like a cool like punk rock girlfriend when I was in high school, and like, well, actually, it was like right when I was getting ready to graduate. I had this beautiful young lady, like, you know, she actually turned me on to a lot of cool music that I still like, you know, but I was like, I want to hang out with girls, man. I want to be with like girls with like cool haircuts, you know what I mean? And, like into cool music and like we're into art and stuff like that. I didn't want to like hang out with a bunch of dudes that I just saw in wrestling practice, you know what I mean?
I was pretty opposite of that. I mean, I did get into, you know, like traditional punk stuff first, you know, Black Flag, Sex Pistols, Dead Kennedys. That was my entry to that stuff. But I did discover a lot of that stuff that, you know, the first wave of Youth Crew type stuff, Youth of Today, all the early Revelation Records bands. I was pretty deep into that for a few years. You know, I would go to the Anthrax Club down in Norwalk, every weekend, man, for a couple of years. And around that time, the scene was kind of dominated by that stuff.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
you know,
Connecticut was known for that, actually.
it was. But I say that, but when I go back and look at, sometimes online, I'll see the Anthrax used to do like a monthly flyer with a list of all the shows.
Yeah.
You know, and it had like the 25 shows for the month because they had shows there constantly. When I go back and look at some of these, I'm like, oh yeah, Youth of Today, Bold and Judge. I was at that show, and then I'll look like down. It's like Saint Vitus, Voivod,
Yeah,
and
no,
like the Rollins band. And I'm like, now to go back in time and be like, fuck, I wish I went to those shows.
Yeah, totally.
There was a lot of, that's just what when I started going to shows, man, I kind of fell into that sector of it. Not that I didn't like other stuff. I did wear Champion sweatshirts and shit like that for, whatever it was, a year. I got deep into that. But I always liked other shit. I totally feel like there's a lot of narrow-minded shit in that scene. I like to say for myself, I don't think I would. That's probably why I didn't last long in it.
Yeah,
Then again,
totally.
who does last long in that?
I mean, I think I hinted at this when I talked to Fred about it. It was like, you kind of should grow out of it a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like meant for young men, and like I kind of think like I don't judge anyone at all for anything really. Like, well, there are things I judge people for. That's not true, but I mean, when it comes to music and like if you're going to be part of any kind of counterculture, which is definitely what this is. It's just not my cup of tea, but like,
right.
It's important, and I think like the straight edge message, if you're a young guy, is like a cool message to have. But also, it just gets into the uniform ideas, and like when everyone has the same ideas about stuff, I get nervous. I don't like that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Krishna started, and always like,
Yeah, that when Shelter first came out, I mean, they weren't the first band actually with touches of that, but they were the first like real.
Well, the Cro-Mags,
right? But it was never as overt with the Cro-Mags,
right? Yeah,
Shelter was like, we're a Hare Krishna band and we're going to show up wearing fucking robes and chanting, and all that shit. And I don't care if it's Krishna. I don't care what it is. I'm not, I'm a pretty anti-organized religion.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally.
Guy on every level.
Yeah.
I don't really buy any of it. I think it's for the most part, they're pretty evil actually.
Well, I mean, you can go back and, now 30 years later, there's all these like books about that era of hardcore, and the whole Krishna thing was it seemed like there's a lot of exploitation going on, a lot of like sketchy like stuff happening within the scene with people victimizing like young people and stuff like that. So I mean, but I get it. I understand, like if you're you're young, you want to break away from like traditional society, and you have like, this seems like an attractive thing because of the spiritual element to it, but ultimately for me, I just, even in my own pursuits with quote unquote spirituality, it's always been this very individualistic, borrowing from here, borrowing from there, reading this book, reading that book, and coming up with my own philosophies about things. And like, but when someone's like telling you what you're supposed to do, I can't fucking handle that, man. I just can't. I don't like people telling me what to do or what I can do or how I have to dress or any of that shit. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Me neither. So,
but yeah, the Cro-Mags though, I've always thought were great, because they were just like this evil band of scary motherfuckers,
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. They were an early band for me that I got into.
Yeah.
I got to see them, pretty early on too, which was cool. I've seen, all the other incarnations of the band, but that original version of the band was pretty deadly.
Yeah, hell yeah. But that time in Boston though, man, that was like, I think like now that enough time has gone by, there has to be some kind of like document about the 90s in Boston, and like specifically the stuff that was going on with Hydra Head and all those bands, because some of those, I mean, ISIS and Cave In, even Piebald got to be very, The Explosion. Those are all bands that came out of this like
Cave In.
Yeah. They all came out of this like that scene, which is kind of centered around this part of Boston we're talking about, Calumet Street. You know what I mean? And like, that whole like, we had Big Wheel Recreations and Hydra Head were right there on Mission Hill.
Yep.
And that's kind of like Hydra Head was like this brand new thing, this brand new injection. And I was really excited about it, man. When I found out about Aaron and what he was doing, and like before ISIS even existed, like the stuff that he was putting out. Like I remember like those early 7-inches that were like hand constructed records,
Yes.
and I think like really nowadays everyone enjoys this beautiful packaging that we get, and you almost take it for granted. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
now, like the artwork presentation and the music all go hand in hand, right?
Right.
But I think before 1995, it wasn't really the case. I think that Hydra had, in some ways, kind of started that movement. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like, punk and hardcore records and stuff. Like the art's cool, like the presentation's cool. But when I think of like underground records that are like elaborate, like handmade, put together records, like really going the extra mile, that's what I think of. I mean, when I think of all like the early SST records and stuff, it was just like, here's your record.
Yeah.
And a lot of them had great art and stuff, but it was just different. What Hydra Head was doing was like bringing way more art into music. That's
Definitely.
why it's such an interesting story with Hydra Head, because not only was a lot of the music, kind of pushing the envelope, but just the presentation of it all.
Yeah.
It's there's a lot to that label beyond the music.
I would have to agree on that. And you're a Hydra Head artist. Like Cable was on that label for a number of records.
Yeah, we had 2 full lengths on Hydra Head, and it's funny we're talking about like the art element of Hydra Head, because the second record we put out, Northern Failures, is just completely black. Like it's black with black print on it. It just looks like a black square.
So it's like that Spinal Tap record.
Exactly. Or AC/DC Back in Black.
Yes.
Just not as good.
Even better. Yep.
Yeah, so like we probably have, I mean, not that it looks bad, it's just very like, it's black. It's just a black square, when I probably could have just picked up the phone and been like, hey, Aaron, can you make this look awesome? And he probably would have been, yeah, sure.
Yeah, totally. But Aaron had the talent to do that. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that, like a lot of artists that I know, people that do their own artwork, like it's not so much like there's no commerciality to it, if that's even a word, but they're like, if you're like a painter or something, you spend resources on getting paints and materials and to make something creative. And I think that was like kind of Hydra Head's, goal. That was like I've talked to Aaron about this and stuff too. It's like, that's what I was able to glean from those conversations, was that it was a record label, but the art was like, when I say art, I mean graphic and music were like the things that really were the important part, and then it worked because people really responded to that label, man. Like they developed their own subset of fans, which followed the label and followed the bands and, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I lived there for a minute, and I know, you were there quite a few times, living right down the street. Walking into that apartment was a trip, because it was like you open the front door, and then like the hallway was weird. It was like really high ceilings and like this long corridor kind of before you got to the actual living space.
Yeah.
But Aaron had just painted from floor to ceiling. The whole hallway, the kitchen, the living room would just like, he painted it with his original art, like just like crazy demons with like meat cleavers. And
Yeah,
shit.
it was like the bloodlet entheogen devils.
Exactly. Yeah,
That's what it was.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it was just cool. You were constantly surrounded by art, like living there. It was an inspiring thing, being around that.
As much as I don't like Boston, like I have to say that like that was a fucking cool time, man.
Yeah.
And it's like, a lot of these bands are starting out. My old band Anodyne was peripheral to the stuff that you guys were doing. I mean, we were never on Hydra Head, but we like, we played with ISIS, we played with Cable, Drowning Man, a lot of these bands that were on there. So that was like a real cool time for me. I thought that was like, Otis was like, there was a lot of like 4 different guys who had 4 different ideas about what the band was supposed to be. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that leads to a lot of tension, and like, we put out those 2 records. You can't find them anywhere, probably. You know what I mean? I don't think I wouldn't want anyone to find those records, really. But like,
I'll post some links later.
it's funny. Mark Thompson who used to work at Hydra Head, and Jay Bennett, the famous Jay Bennett, rock scribe,
Yes.
always bring that up. They always bring that fucking band up whenever they talk. Like, not whenever they talk to me, but frequently that band comes up. And they were legit fans of the band, which I think it's fucking nuts that anyone liked that music.
I liked it when I seen it.
I
can't.
It's got to be super dated by now, though.
I don't know if I've actually even heard any. I mean, I've heard a song here or there, but I don't know if I've actually heard any of the records because I think by the time the records came out, it's not really
past it. Yeah.
Yeah, it just wasn't what I was looking for.
Yeah. I imagine that band was good live. It's like it was heavy. It had like that kind of mid-tempo like helmet thing going on.
Definitely.
And you can like move your body to it, and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, that sounds like live would have been cool. But once you really dig into the recordings, I think the recordings are just garbage, man. If you ask me.
Yeah, well, I think you had a different vision for what it was should have been.
It's
right?
like you had like four different guys. Four guys didn't even know each other that lived in different parts of the country, and you gave them a click track, and then say, "I make a record." That's what it sounds like. You know what I mean? Like,
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like, here's the tempo, go to town, and it's in this key.
Well, there's like a running thing with a lot of your friends and associates. We like to bring up all these old bands from your past that you never want to talk about. Make you feel uncomfortable. I've brought up Otis many times. Versoma, I sprung that on you one time.
I'm not uncomfortable with Versoma. I'm not really uncomfortable. It's just that it's like, it's not much of a story to tell with any of these things, really. I mean, Otis was cool because I got to do shit with that. That was the first time I ever really did anything with music. Was like that band. Like, besides from playing like parties and doing shit,
Right.
But like, we went into a real studio. We recorded. We put out 2 records. We toured a lot. We went to Europe, which was sick. The first time I'd ever been there was with fucking Fetus.
It's incredible.
Jim Thurwell, right?
It's
on a
incredible.
bus with that motherfucker.
Right.
With, William Tucker from Ministry and Revco was also on that bus.
That's nuts.
And Bark Market was on that tour. It was another great band from the 90s, too. Dave Sardi, I got to hang with him.
Yeah.
On that tour, I met Casper Brotzman.
Oh, really?
I met him in Berlin, man. We
Oh,
played a show, and all those cool like Berlin people came to see Fetus play there. And I met him. I met some of the guys from Neubauten. I didn't meet Blix of Bargeld, which would have been sick.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
That same venue, Ice-T was playing. So like the Fetus tour was in a smaller room, and then Ice-T was playing this like massive, big, probably 1,000 capacity room. So after we're done playing, I went over and I watched Ice-T play, which I thought was cool.
Do you remember what year that was?
It had to be like probably 95, maybe.
I wonder if that was the original Gangster tour.
I don't remember. I don't know the chronology of his records. I just know I have like a ton of old Ice-T records. I love Body Count. Like,
Oh yeah, the first all the first 4 or 5 Ice-T records are awesome.
Yeah, Freedom of Speech. That shit was cool.
It's great, man.
Yeah, and that just gave me an idea about like what is possible. Like, if you work hard with music, that you can do cool shit. And it's like, this is stuff I've always wanted to do. Like, ever since I was a young kid, listening to Scorpions and fucking UFO and Sabbath and all that shit.
Right.
Being like, man, someday I would love to go out and play in front of people, and make a record. And I got to do all that stuff. And it really did. I mean, when I was in college, like I was just like, yeah, man, I'm just gonna do engineering and like fucking, get married to some broad I was going out with at the time, and that's why I moved to Boston. By the way, did I ever tell you that?
I think so. Yeah.
I moved there to be with this lady, right? So like I moved there. I quit my job. I moved there in the middle of the winter. I have this like, all the money I made, doing this pretty good job I had it. Okay, I'm going to move to Boston. And then I rented this room, in a basement room on Beacon Street outside of Fenway Park, and just like suffered for fucking months, dude. Like I couldn't find a job. I had this thing kind of lined up and it fell through. And then like when the girl moved back to Boston, within 2 weeks she broke up with me. And then I found a job, I started doing my thing over the summer, and I'm like my dream was my like goal was not to be in a band. Like
Right.
I was not even thinking about that. I was thinking about doing my job, getting married, buying a house, like having kids, like all that shit. It's
Right.
just like I'm like 22 years old or 23 years old at this time, right? But then like when that happened, it was like suddenly this fucking switch went on, and I was like, man, fuck all this shit, man. I'm gonna do what I want to do, and I want to like, I was always in, even though I was into my job or whatever, like I still was very much into music, man. I listen to, still listen to the Black Flag Rollins band, like checking out all the new shit that came out, Rorschach, Poison Idea. Like I think Feel the Darkness came out, 1990? So I was like down with that record.
Right.
All this like, the new shit from Seattle at the time, like Soundgarden, like all that stuff. And I was like, man, I'm just going to buy some fucking gear and I'm going to try to do a band. And like, because I was playing guitar, by myself, keeping my shit together, playing guitars. And then I put a band together that summer, man, in the midst of all that. And it was the band I started the band just so I could fucking kill those hours I had after work, because it was like I was in so much fucking pain that summer, man. It was
No
like,
girlfriend, so.
I had put all my eggs in this one basket. I came back to Boston because I went to college there. The girl and I both went to college there. And it was just disintegrated. It had been obliterated in moments. And I remember she only lived like 2 miles away from where I was living too. So the whole time I'm like trying to avoid like driving down certain streets and everything.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, fucking, I got to avoid her. I can't, that's why I started writing all this like poetry and shit in my notebooks. I'm like, the night is dawning and I feel alone and all this fucking black ink on black paper shit, you know what I mean?
Right.
And like, just staying in my room, and I'm like, man, like doing the band was like killed those hours. It gave me something to do. And like I was able to, the good thing about those four guys, about the four of us, is we wanted to fucking practice, which was sick. We were all four of us were fucking losers. So we just like, oh yeah, what do? You get a practice space. Cool. So we got a practice space, and we just practiced 5 fucking days a week, man. Minimum. Sometimes we would go in on Saturday and be there like all day long rehearsing, right? Writing songs. And that's how that band, I guess that's the good thing about that was that being able to do that was cool. And then, okay, great. If I work my ass off, I can achieve things like that. And I guess I just kept that mindset rolling throughout the rest of my musical like thing,
Yeah, man. I mean, if you can take that away from it, then regardless of whether you like the music or now or whatever, I think you learned how to be in a band. You learned how to put in the work, and you learned how to tour. You learned how to do all that stuff. So that's important.
Yeah, totally, man.
Regardless, yeah. I mean, I think you're known for that too, man. Amongst the underground circles, as a guy who works hard.
Oh, really? That's how people see me?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I mean, from the people I have talked to, I mean, you have that reputation of a guy who's just fucking. He says something is going to do it, and you go out and do it. That's a good thing.
I like the other thing where like I'm a hard guy to work with too. That seems like another good. Like I'm known for being a fucking prick, I guess, to certain people.
Well, I don't know. As long as we knew each other, we never really worked together until a few years ago.
Yeah.
I did a short stint playing with you in Tombs, and I didn't have any issues.
Yeah.
I guess it's that old thing. As long as you show up and do what you're supposed to do, it's not going to be an issue.
Well, that's really the takeaway from that is like, I mean, there are a lot of people out there who think, like there's a different level, I guess, to like a commitment, and I think that like the years that I spent, like wrestling and playing, doing like martial arts and shit like that, it's like, the ability to do one thing over and over and over again until you get it right is like the thing that like I put into doing music too, you know what I mean? And it's like, some people just don't have those experiences, which is not their fault. It's not like I look down on somebody because you can't do that. But that's one of the things I look for in other people to play in a band with is if you have the, the ability to just like drill down into like repetitive things and just learn and get good at stuff like that,
Right. Yeah. Well, it's important if you want to succeed, It's like anything in life, man. You got to put in the work. It doesn't just I guess maybe it just happens for some people, but if you want to create something, concrete, you got to do the work.
You and I have known each other for a long time, man. It's like what's cool is like there were periods of time where we really weren't that in touch for a while, but we were just kind of
Right.
drifting in and out of each other's lives. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I feel like there's many years that have gone by at certain times where we didn't see each other, didn't talk or whatever. But it was always like, but reach out to Mike, and it was like it was never weird.
Well, it's probably weird, but like not weird.
It might have been weird for you.
It's probably weird, like just because I said weird shit, but like probably not like weird in like uncomfortable ways.
No, not uncomfortable weird. Just general weird.
So, based on what you told me earlier, you are getting back into doing music that's not going to be cable, which I'm really fucking excited about.
Yeah, man. I got a couple things, couple irons in the fire. One of them is just a little over a year ago. I joined an existing band from New England called Come to Grief. This band was formed by the founder of the band Grief, Terry Savastano. He also played in Disrupt for a while. Solid dude, incredible musician. Grief had been broken up for years. He wanted to refire up something similar, but because of inner band schism with Grief, which I know all about inner band schism.
Yeah.
He wanted to call it something else, but still play some of the Grief material that he wrote back in the day. So Come to Grief was born. It's like maybe around 4 or 5 years ago now. And, they recorded a couple 12-inch EPs, did a split 7-inch. They've done a bunch of touring, played Roadburn, a bunch of cool stuff. And they were looking for a bass player, man. I had become friendly with Jonathan, the guy who sings and plays guitar. We had talked about Cable and Coming to Grief at one point, doing some shows together. Those never panned out, but we stayed in touch. And when they needed a bass player, he gave me a call. It was January of 2019. So I joined that band, and we practiced 3 times and started writing an album, and pandemic hit. So I've been in that band a year, but we've practiced 3 times. So hopefully we're going to be getting back at it soon. We have a whole album written, just needs to be recorded. So that's kind of my main thing. But other than that, yeah, I've started making some music. I can't say too much about it just because it's not really 100% ironed out yet.
Right.
But working with a mutual friend of ours that I met through being on tour with Tombs, Graham Brooks. He plays guitar and sings in a band called Barishi, label mates to Tombs.
He's in the mist, yep.
So we've been demoing some stuff up at his place in Vermont. Got some few other people in mind to be involved, but it's in the very beginning stages. Some of these songs were things I had in my mind to be another Cable album.
Right.
But unfortunately, after the last album we released in 2019, Take the Stairs to Hell, most of the other guys in the band left the band for various reasons. Alex, our drummer, he's Alex as well, another mutual friend. Mm-hmm. He has a studio, he has a family, he plays in 3 other bands, can't really commit to doing anything. Bernie, the long time friend and collaborator of mine, bandmate in Cable since 1995, his family and work things just he can't do anything, he can't find even like practice, So, it just became a thing like, all right, do I want to make another album here with another revamped lineup of this band? And we didn't do anything to support the last album because of people's limitations. So after talking to some close friends about it and giving it some more thought, I just decided to make this a whole new thing.
I totally support that, man. I think that's awesome.
Cool,
because,
thanks.
It's just knowing the history of Cable and being a fan of the entire career that you guys had. I see the toll it's taken on you on a personal, like emotional level.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that you just now decided to move on and do something else and call it something else and start with a clean slate. And you got Graham is like such a great dude to be in a band with too,
He is, man. just like the couple demo sessions we've had, it's like it's just opening some whole new doors of how to do stuff like proper pre-production, which I've never done making a cable record, man. I've never done like pre-production besides making a demo and a song on a boombox at band practice. You know what I mean? Like we're able to do things now, and kind of opened my eyes more to this. Doesn't even sound like cable. Like when we make Take the Stairs to Hell, our last album, I think at the end of the day, even though there was some different people involved, would make that album sounds like a cable album. It's not a departure from the record we did before that, you know? But this, I mean, there's no vocals on any of these demos or anything, but just the music, it does not sound like cable, you know? So it just made sense.
So it was the right thing to do, man. That's awesome.
As you know, I know you know, and some other people who may be fans of cable, there was a lot of drama surrounding the band from early on, but more so with the making of the last record. You know, different drummer and all that stuff, and there's just a lot of baggage. I don't even know where to start.
Well, I mean, just look at what the band has existed for almost 30 years, man.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah. This is the 25th anniversary of Variable Speed Drive, which is our first studio album. And
right.
we existed 2 years before that. So yeah, 27 years.
Yeah. So I mean, just within that time, like so much shit happens, and like, you know, it's like it just it seems like just in and of just that time frame, like that kind of duration would have in and of itself, where there'd be baggage associated with that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we kept it fairly active as far as releasing music, but we could just never seem to get our shit together to get out there and put in the work, which is, like I said earlier, it's something I've always admired knowing you, man. No matter what you were doing, you were out there working. Whether it was a band you just put together, you were out there on the road doing it. You know, I've seen all different bands that you've done without even having records out or anything, out on the road doing it. And that's what you got to do. And, you know, I'm not blaming this all on other people. Yeah. I am responsible for some of the lack of work in cable as well. But there were other forces inside the band that I let get out of control. And, you know, I'll get accused by certain people when it comes to the cable thing of being like the bad guy, or, you know, but my fault is I'm too much of a fucking good guy because I let this shit go on and on and on because I was trying to be a friend. And that's what happens when you get in bands and you become friends with people. Sometimes, like, it's hard to make those decisions. You know, there were people in the band that had to go a long fucking time ago, and I let it go on and on and on. And at the end of the day, I'm still the fucking bad guy, you know, so I just should have cut out the cancer a long time ago. But that's my fault for not doing that. But I beg to differ with some of these people who say, you know, I'm the fucking bad guy. And my problem is I'm too much of a good guy. So anyone with that opinion, you know, can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, man. Fuck it.
But yeah, anyway, I'm very, very happy, man, to be moving on with my music, dude. I had a great time playing with you and the other guys in Tombs for the short time I was in the band. I wish that could have worked out differently. I had a lot of problems going on family-wise, you know, health of my mother and other things. Just wasn't a great time for me, you know?
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's all good. I mean, there's obviously just no hard feelings over that. But honestly, I'm excited that you got this new thing going on, and both things. Like you got the brand new thing, and then you got Come to Grief, and you know, it's fucking sick, man. I love that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, hopefully once, you know, this COVID thing hopefully gets under control. We got big plans for Come to Grief, album, shows, touring, and hopefully this new project, which, you know, under this format of us doing things, man, I feel a little more comfortable, like just talking about what I'm doing personally.
Yeah.
And since, you know, it's a little more free form.
Yeah, totally, man.
For information.
Besides from like my mom, maybe there's about a good 7 or 8 people listening to this right now.
Yeah,
Aside from like my mother, you know.
My wife, your mother. Yeah, man. So, you know, I'll keep the information flowing on the new project as it becomes more viable. You know, really excited about the future. Both those things, man.
Hell yeah. So now on this show, what we're talking about here, this Road to Ruin thing, you know, we kicked around some ideas But essentially, it's going to be an extension of what we were doing on Metal Matters. But we're going to be doing obviously other things besides metal and extreme music. But some of the cool things we talked about was the G.G. Allin stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was it? You threw this idea out there.
Yeah, a few weeks ago we were talking about the future of this show. I thought it'd be cool because we're both GG fans.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be cool to do something. I mean, that opens a very wide door.
Sure.
Where to even start with G.G. Allin? So most people kind of know the history of G.G. Allin.
Maybe not, man.
Okay, yeah, all right. Maybe not.
Not everyone. I think I also take that for granted that they. Oh yeah, he's like that wild guy who used to throw shit at people and stuff like that. But I think that a lot of people they don't understand like the catalog this dude has out and kind of the the freedom that dude had and like that.
Right.
Like that's the things I respond to about G.G. Allin. You know what I mean? I want to talk about that kind of shit.
Yeah. So instead of picking the Hated in the Nation album,
right, like
we would have done before, now we can make it a little more just open. So I came up with the idea. Maybe we sit down and watch the two prominent G.G. Allin documentaries that are out there. Hated, which has been out for years. And then a newer one that came out a few years ago, which mainly focuses, it's on the, about the life of Gigi, but it focuses heavily on Gigi's mom and his brother Merle.
Right.
I believe it's called Allin the Family.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a Showtime production, I believe, too.
I tried to find it on Showtime, but I don't think it's on Showtime yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I got the DVD, so
okay.
I'll have it either way.
Right.
Actually, I have both Hated and
Cool.
So yeah, we thought it'd be cool, sit down and watch those back to back. And then kind of like when the first podcast we ever did together years ago under Everything Went Black, me and you went to see air quotes Black Flag.
Oh yeah.
In Brooklyn. And we came back immediately after the show and we sat down while it was burning fresh in our minds. And that was the first podcast we ever did together.
I like that idea, man. That's a good idea. It
was a lot of fun. So, we're going to sit down and watch these two documentaries and then hop right on the mics after and just kind of use that as a good format, And I think we also talked about a band we both mutually love and discovered not that long ago, a band called Brain Bombs.
Yeah. That's actually the first time I heard them was at Armageddon Record Shop in Providence.
Yeah, me too, because those guys are friends with some of those guys, and they reissue all their stuff, and they put a lot of their stuff out in the U.S.
They had there was a song playing that the lyrics where it smells like fuck in the room where we practice, and I was like, wow, this is brilliant, man. This is like,
yeah. If anyone doesn't know who Brain Bombs is, check it out. They are, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, I guess the lazy description is musically like noise rock. A little, it's noisy, that's for sure. Vocally,
I would say it's not that far removed from. I think there's kind of like a G.G. Allin thing going on in there.
Yeah.
Like super negative lyrics,
right?
Very grimy underbelly of life. That kind of the ugliness of human existence.
Yeah, a lot of reference to drugs and hookers.
It's darkness, it's fucking really cool. Actually, you want to know something funny? That Die. What the fuck's the song, man?
Die, you fuck.
Die. No. Die, Jesus, die.
Oh yeah.
That was like the post loadout leaving the venue track on several tours we did back with one of the other lineups.
Right.
Like everyone in the van. Okay, cool. We turn like that horn starts off.
Is that like a bugle?
I don't even know what
playing?
the hell it is. A fucking trumpet or some shit.
It was like an ode to the cows, maybe.
Yeah, it reminded me of the cows, definitely.
Right.
And then we would play that we would leave, listen to that song. And
so yeah, I mean, we're both fans, but we don't know a lot about it. So we figured doing a deep dive into the history of Brain Bombs,
educating ourselves in the Brain Bombs.
Yeah, and then we've had other ideas too. Like we've talked about kind of taking a day and going on the road.
Sure.
And meeting up with some people and talking about a record, but with someone who actually played on the record face to face. The
Well,
three,
we had this idea back on Metal Matters of talking to Keith Bennett about Wrecking Crew, Balance of Terror.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
we talked, Terry, we could talk about grief,
Yep.
and doing these kind of road oriented episodes, and also talking to Graham about the vampire legend of where he lives. Like that's the,
Yeah.
because Graham from Barishi, our mutual friend, we rented his van once. And I remember I had to drive up there, and when I picked it up, he was telling me about how he lives on the edge of some haunted area in Vermont where there's like vampires and stuff like that. I was like, "This is fucking awesome, man! You need to tell me this story like in more detail at some point."
The thing about Graham, the more I get to know Graham, though, his sarcasm is so on point that he'll start telling a story, and I don't know if it's fucking true or
You
not.
think he lied to me about the vampires?
I mean, I guess technically it might be a lie, but I would just say maybe he was trying to be like tell a story, like some inject some sarcasm.
Well, I want to believe that there are vampires that live on the outskirts of Graham's farm. But, so I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I want to believe.
I mean, I've been up there a few times, and it seems like it could be true,
Yeah.
by the area. He told me some other stories when I was up there. One about, I'm not going to tell, but how he met his girlfriend, which was a total fabricated bullshit story. But
Wow.
the way he told
So
it,
he's a chronic liar, is what you're saying.
I'm just going to say he's funny.
Yeah, I know that, man. I mean, hell, we did that run of dates with those guys.
Yeah, that was doing that run of shows was great, man. I mean, discover a band that I absolutely love that I might have never fucking heard and met those guys in Barishi. All three of those guys are great dudes. But yeah, we talked about doing like the New England kind of road trip. We'll hit like go see Keith in Boston, then we can shoot over and visit Terry in New Hampshire, and then shoot over to Vermont. We can do that all in a day. That's what's good about the Northeast.
One of the things that really, like when we did the Swans on Metal Matters, like that episode could have been like fucking 4 hours long, man.
Yeah, that was like, Metal Matters was a lot of fun. It was a great experience, but there were some limitations.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like what I'm looking, that's one of the motivations to moving everything over to here is like having just more of like the latitude to do longer episodes and really, like that's mainly it. Cause it's sometimes like, I know that for me cause I'm the guy who edited all this stuff. I was like, oh man, I wish I could have left this in, it's like,
Right.
But you got to put your editor hat on and like figure out what's essential, what's not. And,
Right.
and that's hard to do with this type of thing where it's like so much of the little stories are what make it interesting and cool,
Yeah, I think we both referenced the term freeform. Like this, we can do a little more freeform and not worry about maybe we get rambling on some stories. But, from feedback we both got over the last couple of years, people seem to like that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
They don't want to hear us read off of Wikipedia about Iron Maiden killers. They want to hear
exactly
like
what I don't want to do, man,
right. Anybody can fucking do that.
Yeah.
They want to hear about, the first time you bought the fucking cassette at this little store in your hometown or whatever. You know what I mean? That's the shit I like when I listen to podcasts too. Like, or factual stuff that you can't just Google in 2 seconds. You got to put some work in to find,
That's what was good about doing episodes with Jay Bennett because, his life work is writing about music. So if we did an episode on, Def Leppard or something like that, he had all these like little anecdotes that he can talk about,
He probably didn't even have to look this shit up, man. He probably looked it up 30 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, the dude probably has like mad pages of notes. He's written about a lot of the shit that we talked about already. You know what I mean? So,
right.
AC/DC, and that era of rock music is like his bread and butter, man. Like he loves all that early 80s and like late 70s stuff, and he's real knowledgeable on that stuff.
Yeah, I believe, when I was living up in Boston for that brief time, Jay turned me on to some cool music. I was getting into that band Hyenas when I lived up there.
Yeah, that was like kind of the heyday of that band, really.
Yeah, kind of after they broke up.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was just getting into them, and he's like, "Oh, it's cool. You like them." Like, and he gave me some live Hyenas stuff I hadn't heard. But he also turned me on to some '70s hard rock band Cactus.
Oh yeah, it's like Carmine Appice was in that.
Yeah,
or Vinny Appice, Carmine, right?
Carmine. Yeah. Vanilla Fudge.
Yep.
Okay. Actually, that was like half of Vanilla Fudge. But yeah, it was like real, like awesome, like bluesy but gritty. You know, it was like kind of like that songs that were like fucking noisy and heavy, and I'm like, this is from the '70s. Like that kind of opened my eyes to that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, even I don't know Jay nearly as well as you, but he was always a big supporter of Cable in the early days too.
Ben, it's awesome. Man.
Great guy. But yeah, man, we've talked about doing stuff like maybe covering like Public Enemy records and shit like that, which I know there wasn't a lot of restrictions in the old format, but I think we both might have felt that wasn't the place to talk about that.
Yeah, and then there's also, there was stuff like the Black Heart Procession, bands like Gun Club, bands like, even the Swans are kind of like a metal adjacent band, really. You know
right,
I mean?
Totally.
And Michael Gira despises heavy metal music. So,
right.
Like, that's what I mean. Like, even though he's like influenced metal profoundly, he doesn't like that he influenced heavy metal music. I think, remember, like, there was something in either the documentary or the biography, the oral history, we talked about how he got bummed out when, like, dudes, like, metal guys started going to see the Swans play earlier on.
Right.
Because of how extreme they were,
Yeah. Right.
So it's funny. And that's why, like, if I ever met that guy, like, I wonder, like, if I should even say anything that, what an inspiration he's been. He's like, I mean, like how, like Napalm Death influenced by, I talked to Barney on Metal Matters, and he's, the Swans, like, were such a deep influence on them. I mean, even, was it From Enslavement? What's the Lee Dorian one? From Enslavement to Obliteration, or the first song on that fucking record is a Swans fucking song, man. It's like the heavy drums.
Oh yeah.
Which Fear, Emptiness, Despair? Is that the one? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Sometimes I lose track of the titles.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of them.
That first track is a fucking Swans song by a metal band, by a grind band.
You know what though? Have you never met Gira?
No.
I think you guys would get along good because he's another guy who has the rep of being difficult to work with. So.
Well, after watching that documentary, how he conducts band practice, he does look like a pain in the ass, though.
That's fair. Yeah, but I mean, without
you ever met Michael Gira?
Yeah, I have twice. I mean,
he's a nice guy.
I don't like go to dinner with him, but like, yeah, he's a real nice guy. To me, on the two different occasions I had interactions with him at the merch table, or one time the first time I ever seen him, I seen him solo before I seen the Swans or Angels of Light. It was just him playing acoustically. It was at the Bowery Ballroom, in New York, opening for Low.
Oh wow!
And I like Low, but I went down to see him.
That's a pretty big room to play solo in, man.
Yeah, well, Low is a pretty big band though, so the place was packed.
Well, what I was talking about though is like if he was just him and a guitar.
Oh yeah.
That's fucking heavy, man. Can you imagine that,
dude? It was heavy too.
Yeah,
like not in the traditional sense of like wall of amplifiers, but it was. But he was sitting. You've been to the Bowery Ballroom,
yeah,
I'm sure,
yeah,
right?
So
there's like the downstairs with the little bar.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And you go up, and up is where the big room is,
right?
So I seen him sitting at the bar, like downstairs by himself, and I'm like, I don't like to do this, but I was like, fuck it, I'm such a huge fan.
Sure,
he wasn't talking to anybody. I was like, this is a perfect opportunity to just say, hey, I'm a fan, So I said, hey man, can I buy you a beer? And he's like, oh, I'm about to go on, but maybe after. And I'm like, all right, thanks. Big fan, psyched. So I seen him after, and I'm like, hey man, do you want that beer? And he's like, actually, yeah. So I bought him a beer, and we actually sat there and had a conversation for probably 5 minutes, And he's like, so what do you do for work? At the time I was driving a truck. He's like, that's good work,
good honest work,
That's what he said. So he was very cool, very polite, And then I met him once after an Angels of Light show. He was at the merch table. He always signs. You buy shit, he always signs it and everything. Right. Super cool, So, but I heard the horror stories and obviously seen the documentary. But I mean, there probably wouldn't be a Swans without that kind of. Without him, there wouldn't be a Swans. That's for sure. So,
well, like when we did that tour with Fetus back in the day, I like that was like I was very into the Swans. Like when I was doing Otis, I was like. Hugely into them, and I had this like Swans like long sleeve T-shirt that I wore all the time on that tour, and the people in Fetus obviously know Michael Gira.
Yeah.
And like the tour manager and stuff were telling me all these horror stories about him and how hard he is to work with and how he can't keep a band together and all this stuff. And it's like, and I was just like, oh, that's cool, whatever.
Right.
You know, I'm like, but not like that changes. I mean, I'm sure everyone has. It depends on who you are too. If you're a guy who's like fucked up all the time and you can't show up to practice on time, then maybe you should get thrown out of the band.
That's the thing. You don't know the other side to all these stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because like a lot of those people have problems with drugs and alcohol and stuff like that.
Right. I'm not going to name any names once again, but I have from pretty reliable sources somebody that was in that world for a minute that didn't work out was like, yeah, that guy's impossible to work with. But you're going to have that.
Yeah.
You're going to have those stories. So.
Well, totally, man. But yeah, I wouldn't mind revisiting a discussion about the Swans just again, you know, and, maybe like people who didn't hear that 50-minute episode we did on them.
Right. Because that is a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, man.
In an hour, like, I mean, shit, maybe we could even do something like we're doing
a series on it.
Yeah, that, or like maybe one of the parts could be like we're talking about the Gigi thing is, because I think you got the Blu-ray too, right? Of the Swans.
Yeah, I have that. Yeah.
Because the second disc is like a whole nother documentary.
Yes.
We could sit down and watch that one day and then talk about that.
I like that idea.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's stuff like that. Another thing I really wanted to do, which I was trying to think if there was even any interest for it over at Metal Matters, was like a multi-part Rorschach oral history type of episode, and that would have to be multiple parts.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where I sit down with Charles, I sit down with Andrew, Keith, and
that'd be cool.
Even peripheral guys like Will Tarrant, who used to drive them, and Chris Pierce, who recorded their records, and all that kind of stuff, and like. Just get like an overall oral history of the band, because that's, and any of you guys out there who don't know who Rorschach is, do me a favor, or go out there and check it out, because it's like they're a seminal band when it comes to like chaotic hardcore. You know what I mean? Like if you're into, Dillinger Escape Plan or whatever, you have to at some point you have to believe that those guys had been influenced by Rorschach.
I don't think Rorschach gets enough credit.
Yeah,
for changing the game,
and that I remember like when they had a reunion a while ago at this point, like what 8 years ago maybe, something like that.
Might even be 10 at this point.
Yeah, they did a reunion, and I remember it was like they had these series of shows they played, and the whole concept was all original members, all original roadies.
So that's great.
So Will Tarrant was involved, the guy who did Chainsaw Safety Records. Chris Pierce was involved. They used Pierce's van.
Right.
It was all the original guys, and it was fucking sick, man. And that was when I got to sing Black Flag, My War with them on stage.
Right, which is incredible. And that was the day they played 3 shows in one day in New York.
Yeah.
ABC No Rio in the afternoon.
Yep.
La Poisson Rouge in Manhattan in the evening, we'll call it.
Yep.
And then it was like midnight or something, right?
Late night show at the Acheron.
The Acheron, which is I went to the first 2, and by the end I'm like, I'm too fucking tired. We were going to do it, and then we didn't. And you got to jump up and sing My War. I mean, one of your favorite songs, probably with one of your favorite bands. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
And the thing about it was that it was like an afterthought to even go to that show, because I went to Maryland Death Festival that day. Yeah.
Oh shit.
It was I specifically wanted to go and see Napalm Death and Godflesh. Right. That was
the first Godflesh show.
That was like before they decided to make records again. It was like they started. Okay, we'll have some reunions. Right. So I was like, all right, cool. I got to go down, check it out. You know what I mean? Drove back to New York. I'm like, oh, there's a chance that I could catch Rorschach play. Yeah, I didn't live that far from the Acheron, because I was living in Greenpoint. So I'm like, you know what, man? I'm wide awake, man. Let me just fucking check this out. They hadn't started yet. I think they had just gotten there from the Poisson Rouge show.
Okay.
So they were set up on stage, and there's some people there.
Right.
And which I was like, damn, that's kind of cool that people are at the show, because it's the third one they played.
Right.
And totally enjoying it. And then Charles is like, the words to My War? I'm like, yeah. So he just handed me the mic, and I jumped up on stage and I sang it.
That's great. That's a great memory to have.
Dude,
And you got, I know you said there's no video, but you got a cool,
Rich
cool
Hall's
picture.
wife actually snapped that photograph that I have hanging up in my office.
Okay. Yeah. Carrie. Yep.
Yeah. That's Rich Hall's a mutual friend. He used to do tons of shows in New York City at CBGB's, and he's a road guy. He's like a friend forever, and now he lives out in Seattle and married. Incredible artist. Fan of music, lover of music, all around good guy.
Yeah, great guy, man. He was came on the road, did merch, and helped us out with the when I was playing at ISIS, we did an ISIS cable East Coast tour together. He came with us. Complete fucking disaster of a tour. But regardless, Rich was there and was a good source of entertainment.
Yeah, Rich came out on tour at Anodyne a couple times too. And those shows were like the early days.
Yeah.
Not like any Anodyne tour was good, really, but like that was like those are the kind of things where you're in the middle of the country, you have shows getting canceled, and you're like, what the fuck am I even doing out here? I mean, I'm sitting in like a Denny's in like Omaha, Nebraska or some shit, and you're like, no show tonight, no show tomorrow, no show last night. They all got canceled. The next show is like on Friday. What am I going to do?
Dude, do I know? Yeah. This might contribute to one of the reasons cable didn't do more touring, because the 3 tours we did were fucking abysmal. I mean, our first tour, dude, in 1996 for the Variable Speed Drive album, we were stuck in fucking Florida, dude, for like 6 days without a show.
Florida too, man.
Florida.
Damn.
Gainesville, Florida.
It's like there could be worse cities in Florida to be stuck in though. But yeah, when you're on the road and you don't have any money and you're just kind of like bored with nothing, aimlessly in a city, it sucks.
Well, it was July, so it was fucking brutally hot. But I mean, we were held up at a girlfriend of our guitar player was living down there. Of Bernie was living down there at the time. So it could have been worse. You know what I mean? We weren't like in a fucking truck stop in our van. We were at a house. We were fucking had endless supplies of pizza delivered and fucking beer. So, I mean, but still we had about 4 or 5 shows in a row get canceled, like in the Southeast, so every tour we went on was awful.
Yeah. It's a hard thing it's like, cause it takes a while, like even, or it doesn't. It's like, it's funny. It's like, it's just the thing it's like such a fickle thing doing music, because unlike other vocations in life, you can work really hard at being a fucking painter, or like really hard at being an electrician or something like that. And you progress and you make more money and you get paid better and live a better life. But in music, it's like, you could bust your ass for no fucking gain, man. Like you can go out there, work just as hard as everyone else, and if you just, for whatever reason, if you don't get that thing that people want, then you're fucked. That's it. Or if it's not the right time for what you're doing, you're like, oh, that band, they were like a little ahead of their time, meaning like no one went to go see them when they were doing it.
Yeah, it's another way for saying no one gave a fuck.
Yeah, and it's like, I get it, and it's like, Anodyne tours are always fucking hard, man. It's like, we were similar to you guys, man. It's like it was a different thing, and no one really gave a fuck about the stuff we were doing,
No, and that is a funny thing too. It's always like I felt like we were and I'm not saying we were doing anything special, but I felt like we were a couple steps ahead of a lot of people. I don't know if I'm putting that right, but the band changed a lot in the early days, and there's like a huge fucking thing now, man, with like stoner, doom, sludge, metal, whatever the fuck you want to call it, whatever stupid tag you want to put on that. We started kind of dipping our toe maybe in that water a little bit in like 2000. Yeah. And like people who liked our records before, a lot of people are like, what the fuck is this? Now like that shit is fucking like the coolest shit ever.
Yeah.
Or it has been for a while now, but like,
right.
Back when we were doing that, man, there was really no interest, so it's funny. Even like we played a lot of hardcore shows when we started, and we were not really a hardcore band. We played with like Shelter or 108 or whatever, Snapcase, whatever bands from back then. And that's just because that's the scene we were involved in. So we didn't know what other shows to play, And And then, it got a little bit better. We started playing like some more like kind of noise rock type shows with Glaze Baby and stuff like that from mutual friends. And this guy, Brian Simmons, he runs a label called Atomic Action Records, which has kind of been reborn, but he put out some of our first 7 inches and stuff. Always been really helpful to Cable. And he was working with some weird bands like Glaze Baby, Marjan Crash, The Laurels, these weird like bands from Providence that were like kind of art rock, noise rock, but they lived outside of the hardcore world completely,
Yeah, Providence has always been like that. Like they've always had a real like outsider kind of vibe with their bands.
So we'd play like a hardcore matinee at like the old living room in Providence with like a Chokehold and Mouthpiece. And then like load up the van and go across town to AS220.
Oh yeah.
The weirdo fucking art space bar and play with Glaze Baby and Marjan Crash, in the same day.
Yeah.
Totally. As like we just kind of liked it all,
Yeah, Andy played a handful of like tough guy style shows. Like I remember we did a whole run of dates across southern Canada with 100 Demons and Death Threat.
Oh, two Connecticut bands.
Yeah, 2 Connecticut bands. Like dudes, one guy, a couple of those guys I think were in Hatebreed or whatever.
Yeah, I'm sure at one point. I know a guitar player for 100 Demons. You remember, was it Bubba?
I didn't talk
to
those guys. I didn't talk to any of those guys. We didn't interact at all.
I've known him for years. That's the one guy in those bands I know. Well, I mean, yeah. So
there was one dude from Death Threat. I think he was in Death Threat that he was in Yuppicide.
Oh, okay.
And that dude like got what we were doing, and he was pretty cool. But like the kids at the show fucking hated us. It was just like it was that
right.
Those types of nights. It's like there was no breakdowns. Like our music didn't have any like fucking mosh parts or anything like that.
Right.
We played a ton of shows like that. Like even at CB's, even in New York, we would play like shows. Like Ralphie sometimes put on like Ralphie was doing. I'm talking about Ralphie Boy from Disassociate, who is another luminary like main man in New York City when it comes to like underground music. And he used to put on all these festivals. Like he brought over Man as a Bastard, the first time on the East Coast.
Very cool.
Fucking the Soylent Green, like all that shit.
Right.
He was the man for that,
Right.
But when that whole metalcore thing started, not the cool, not like Integrity and like Starkweather, but like that other type of metalcore started becoming really popular. He would book some of those like fests with those bands, and we were invited to play some of those, and it was like, horrible, man. Like fucking like just the worst. And we're playing. I'm like, wow, this is like New York. We like live here. It's like none of our friends came to the show or whatever, And it's like, but it's all good though, man. It's like it's just adversity, man. And like that's the kind of shit that like you fucking it makes you a better man. You know what I mean? To go through adversity, And it's like some people just dry up and blow away. Like one guy that played in Anodyne dried up and blew away. You know what I mean? And
I know exactly what
never
you
to be heard from again, but like, or not, or you just weave that into your lifetime and it becomes an experience that you had and you fucking learn and improve from that,
Yeah, man. No doubt. Yeah, it's surprising somehow we didn't do an Anodyne Cable tour.
I feel like we always kind of talked about doing something like that.
I know we talked about, and maybe you remember the other half of this, I can't remember. I know we talked about doing a split 7-inch where Anodyne was going to cover Mississippi Queen.
Yes. Yep.
And I was going to sing it with you guys. Dude. And then we were going to cover something, and you were going to sing it. You were going to sing it.
Let's do it. Let's do it now at Tombs and your new band.
Okay, that's cool.
We're recording a bunch of shit, like some 7-inches, like I was telling you earlier, just to kind of keep the ball rolling until we can get back out on the road or even record another album, hopefully later this year. But we're gonna do like a couple 7-inches with some covers on them, and we got like Bathory, Motorhead, stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Maybe we'll do another one. Maybe we'll do a split, with your new thing.
Yeah, dude. Of course,
that'd be fucking awesome. Mississippi Queen, that'd be great.
That would be great.
Yeah,
because we talked about doing that. I can't remember what the other song was that was going to be the Cable song, but I remember you were like, "Let's do Mississippi Queen."
Well, I'm hype on Mountain. I love Mountain.
Oh, me too, dude. Me too. We could do a whole episode on fucking
Yeah,
mountain.
dude, that would be a great one, man.
Considering we just lost Leslie.
Leslie West, man.
You know?
Like, fucking, that's a huge loss, man.
And we, matter of fact, we're in Vintage Vinyl today where Leslie West played many times on that
Dude,
stage.
That is one of the sickest things ever, is all the photographs they have, all the different bands that play there and different guys that had like signings there, like Dee Snider and, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
cool, man. Morbid Angel. I remember
Yeah.
that was like a big thing down here because it was when Rutan was in the band.
Okay.
When Morbid Angel was.
Oh, yeah, he's a Jersey guy.
Yeah, Eric grew up in Jersey.
Ripping Corpse.
Ripping Corpse, yeah.
Right.
And when that was like a thing, like when they came to do a signing at Vintage Vinyl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we should do a Mountain / Leslie West
There you go, man.
episode. You know, see, these are cool ideas that we're inventing them on the spot.
So yeah, you guys out there, if if you just let us know what you think. If you got any recommendations or suggestions that if we like it, that is, you know,
Right.
we'll talk about it. If we don't like it, we just won't do it. But,
Yeah, real quick too. I also want to say, man, it's cool to have Mateo on board.
Yeah, man.
For some of these episodes.
Yep.
And Ralph.
Yeah, that's the other regular show is Unholy Passion with me and Ralph. So the way it's going to break down is every month, Randy's going to do an episode, Ralph's going to do an episode, and then there's like 2 floater episodes that's going to have interviews. Like I have Mateo from Cavera is on, and we got him in the like on deck. We got my good friend CC from Zucchini Kill Bakery down in Austin. She's on deck. She also rips guitar, fucking road dog, van driver. She was in Phobia, fucking runs shit down in Austin with her vegan bakery. And they have a mail order too, man. So if you guys want to order like vegan cakes and stuff, head over to zucchinikill.com. You know, follow them on Instagram, all that shit, man. But you'll hear all about it when she comes on. But yeah, that's how it's going to break down. We're going to have like two regular shows and then 2 kind of like rando things like that, you know.
Yeah, man, I'm psyched. I'm glad those guys are going to be part of it too. There's 2 guys I have yet to meet face to face, but through us doing podcasting together, I met these guys through you.
Yeah, man.
You know, and we correspond and great dudes. Trade music with those guys and stuff. So stoked to have them along. Maybe we can meet face to face coming up fairly soon.
What do you? Let me ask you a question, man. What is your? How do you feel like once this shit is over with? What do you think it's going to be like when people can finally do stuff again? Do you think it's going to be out of control or what?
Well, I struggle with inherently being a negative person, you know. I have 2 ways I think of this. Like, here's what I like to think. I like to think, you know, when it's deemed safe and, you know, a good portion of the country's vaccinated, and it seems like we have this virus under control, I like to think shows, tours, stuff like that are going to be out of hand. I like to think people are going to be so geared up to want to go out and do shit that it's going to be better than it ever was. But then the other side of that is, how many of these venues are going to be left? What there's going to be a percentage of people that are still going to be afraid to go out. There's going to be a percentage of people that don't have the money to go out, that have lost their jobs. And, I think it could be tough on bands like me and you playing.
Well, yeah, well that for sure, because no one's going to guarantee the kind of money that we were making before. But
Right.
like
Big
tours, or they're not going to, like, European bands are probably not going to be, because you know they have the biggest overhead and to come over here and play.
Right.
So I think promoters at first are going to be very reluctant to give them the money they need to come over here. But I know, like, at least in our camp, we're thinking more just like doing regional shit right away, where it doesn't matter if we lose money, you know, as much. You know what I mean?
Right. You're not out in the middle of fucking Arkansas.
Yeah. So I mean, we're thinking like probably just as far west as like Chicago, you know,
Right.
Maybe as far south as like, you know, Maryland or something like that. Like, I don't really want to go too far south, really, but like, you know, like,
yeah, I know.
yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, man, I don't know. It depends. You know, I talk to different people about it, and it's because those are kind of like the two different opinions. I hope it'll probably be somewhere in the middle of that.
Yeah.
But
I know for me personally, I as soon as like I'm able to fucking really go out and shit's available, I'm not going to make excuses for not going out anymore, man. Because I remember like when I was living in Brooklyn, it was like, I saw a lot of shows for sure, but there were nights where like I could have went to see like sick bands play, and I lived right down the street from St. Vitus too, and it was like, I just would stay home. I'm like, I'm just going to watch Netflix or whatever, you know?
well, that is there are a handful of positives that come from this experience, the pandemic experience, and something as simple as taking shit for granted.
I'm totally guilty of that.
Same here. Taking time for granted. Oh, it's tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. I'll go see them next time they come through.
Yeah.
Whatever, man. You can like attach it. There's so many things. Seeing your friends, like doing what we're doing right now.
Yeah,
whoever would have thought it'd be a year between us sitting in the same room.
I know, man. Exactly.
So it's kind of crazy. And like there's other shit, man. Like, I don't really talk about it too much, but I have I'm going to start my own business in a way, which is directly connected to touring as well.
Yep. Yeah.
And like I was within months of making a pretty big financial investment in starting this up. And now I don't know if I'll ever be able to do it, if it'll ever be feasible,
I mean, it's going to come back. I mean, look, just historically, 100 years ago, there was the Spanish flu happened, right?
Right.
Same kind of thing. People died, no vaccine, no treatment, right?
Right.
2 years later, the Roaring Twenties happened, where people were just going fucking buck. You know what I mean?
That's what I hope happens.
But it's like people right now can't keep it together, man. They want to go out and fucking party, and do shit and get fucking laid and get their dick sucked and all that stuff. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's just you can't keep it. You can't restrain that urge in people, the social urge.
No, and like, we don't need to turn this into a big political conversation. I think we both know where each other stands on this.
Yeah.
But, this was politicized from the beginning.
Yeah,
and the minute you politicize something, forget it. You can't take common sense out of the fucking equation. And we're in a really bad spot because of that,
But, people are getting vaccinated and the numbers are coming down. So there's like logic there,
Right.
Which
so,
is like, you can't really deny that.
well, right. Some people do anyway, though.
Well, fuck them. They're the ones who should fucking, get eliminated then, They're the ones who will end up fucking getting weeded out eventually,
I couldn't agree more. Fuck those.
I know that's like a little harsh, but that's my harsh point of view.
It's the process of weeding out.
Yeah, it's my Nietzschean sort of, vibe on things sometimes.
But yeah, man, I'm really excited about moving forward with this format and people involved, and think it's going to be cool.
Yeah. Speaking of venues, we got Dave Castillo too. He's coming up. He's one of the main men over at St. Vitus, which is like, even if you don't live in New York or the tri-state area, I feel like people know about that place.
Yeah, man. I think, like I say, I worry about a lot of these venues surviving, and I don't know the financials of it, but a place like Vitus, to me, it's like a modern CBGB's. I think they'll be able to get creative ways to weather the storm, whether it be through merch or GoFundMe's or whatever.
Right.
That place is kind of legendary, so I think they'll still be there, hopefully. But questions like this would be great for Dave.
No, totally. That's what I want to talk about.
Like he'd probably have some great insight, being so entrenched in that world. He'd probably. I don't know if he has the answers either. Probably not, but he probably has a better inside look at it.
But also, like, there's going to be a need for that kind of thing, even if some venues don't make it, which is like a horrible thing, and it sucks that our government wasn't able to support them as well. But there's at some point there's going to be a need for that service, and new things will take their place eventually.
I wonder. I had this conversation with somebody too, one of my fellow bandmates in Come to Grief. I wonder if things are going to go take the turn a lot, back to bands, not just young bands, but bands like my band and your band playing halls, rented halls and basements and stuff like that, places that Tombs normally probably wouldn't play the last 10 years or so, 8 years or so.
Yeah.
I wonder if more of that kind of thing is going to happen because some of these venues in these certain cities just aren't going to be there, you know?
Yeah, or just touring like in general, like for a long time, like I've been like, man, I don't even want to play in the middle of the country anymore. Like,
Right.
maybe I won't. Maybe I will just play the coasts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like tours are only going to be like a couple weeks long instead of like a month or 5 weeks or whatever.
Right.
At least until shit starts popping again.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll come back. It just might take a while.
I know that they're booking. There are shows on the books right now that are happening in the spring with like reduced capacity. So it's like people are planning on doing this year.
I have tickets to a festival in Norway.
Hole in the Sky, is that it?
Beyond the Gates.
Oh, okay.
Primarily black metal festival. It's insane lineup. That's in August, and it's not canceled yet. But I don't think. I mean, Hellfest is canceled.
Yeah.
Or rescheduled till next year. Roadburn get rescheduled.
Yeah.
So I think the same thing is going to happen. I mean, honestly, right now I don't feel comfortable on getting in a plane, flying to Norway, and being at a festival with 20,000 people, 50,000 people, whatever. So it's fine. I hope maybe it'll get rescheduled for 2022.
But we've been getting stuff for late this year, like November.
Yeah, that's what
So it's like
you were saying.
By then, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, according to our government, they think everyone should be eligible to get vaccinated by June or July, which, once again, the negative side of me comes out. I just see a lot of holes in that theory with the logistics of it, but I guess it can improve.
You only need to get 65 to 70% of the people vaccinated for herd immunity.
True, and then because of the divide in this country right now, you got probably
if
little.
If you're one of those people out there, then you don't have to get vaccinated, but 65 to 70% of the people should. If you don't want to get vaccinated, that's on you.
Right. It's kind of unbelievable, but
dude, motherfuckers will believe anything, man. Like you know what I mean? It's like
yeah. I mean, just look at this past fucking year, dude. I mean,
the QAnon shit. I mean, I don't know about you, but back in the '90s, I was like way into like conspiracy. Not like I believed them, but I loved reading about conspiracy theories and hell, even up until like 4 or 5 years ago, I was like interested in that kind of shit.
Right.
Like mind control and all that stuff.
Right.
But that's exactly what the QAnon thing was. It's like it's exactly what I read about in the '90s on all those Feral House books. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
It's a psyop.
Right.
That we all observed happen with all these QAnon types.
Well, I think we finally got to that point, at least in the United States. I mean, we can't hold any other country accountable for this, right? Where the dumbing down of society is finally here. And you're fucking seeing it with your own eyes, where the dumb people almost outnumber the people with common sense.
I don't know if it's that profound, but there's a lot of dumb motherfuckers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're like expanding into like other somehow they're gaining traction with people. Like I don't know if like the dumb idiots are outnumbering the smart.
Well,
people,
what I'm saying is the gap's closing.
Yeah, okay, I'll buy that.
And when I say that, I'm also referring to, and I've been saying this shit for years. You may not agree, but like, just like society is being dumbed down constantly, whether it's TV shows, what's on fucking network television, the news, music that's on the radio. Like, I feel like it's just been being dumbed down for years. It just gets dumber and dumber, and I'm in disbelief sometimes when I like see what's popular. So I'm so disconnected from that world, but like occasionally I'll like, I get nieces and nephews and shit. Like, and I'll be like, this is like the big movie now. Like this is like, it's fucking horrifying, man. Like, I guess it's just a matter of taste, but I'm not doing a great job describing this. I just feel like there's like this dumbing down that's been going on. It's been going on for a long time now, and I feel like most people do, whether it's like they stare at fucking TikTok all day or what, I don't know. But I see it at work a lot. People just walk around all day watching TikTok on their phone.
That's fucked up.
Like completely oblivious to anything, just going, staring at their fucking phone. Like, and it just like, I don't know.
It's like some Mike Judge shit. That's for sure, man.
Yeah, they think of it like it exists to make people fucking dumber than they already are. I don't know.
Well, anyway, thanks everyone for listening. And if you guys came over from Metal Matters, hail. I know just from interacting with some of you online that you weren't aware of Everything Went Black. And most of last year, I would say probably while I was doing Metal Matters, I wasn't really spending a lot of time on this. And I was trying to figure out like what to actually do with this particular outlet. So now we have a goal, we have a mission. So here we are. And welcome for anyone who's new. And yeah, man, we're looking forward to really kicking this in the ass here in 2021.
Yep.
So everyone be safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Busted flat in Baton Rouge, heading for the trains, feeling nearly faded as my jeans. Bobby thumbed a diesel down just before it rained, took us all away to New Orleans. I took my harpoon out of my dirty red bandana and was blowing sad while Bobby sang the blues. With them windshield wipers slapping time and Bobby clapping hands, we finally sang up every song that driver knew. Freedom, just another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing ain't worth nothing but it's free. Feeling good was easy, Lord, when Bobby sang the blues. Feeling good was good enough for me. Good enough for me and Bobby McGee. From the coal mines of Kentucky to the California sun, Bobby shared the secrets of my soul. Standing right beside me, Lord, through everything I'd done. Every night she kept me from the cold. Then somewhere near Salinas, Lord, I let her slip away, looking for the home I hope she'd find. And I trade all my tomorrows for a single yesterday, holding Bobby's body next to mine. Freedom, just another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing left is all she left for me. Ah, but feeling good was easy, Lord, when Bobby sang the blues. Buddy, that was good enough for me. Good enough for me and Bobby McGee. La da 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 da, la da 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 da, la da da. La
putting the fucking bet in with your bookie? Is that what you're doing right now?
No, I'm trying to see when this. Actually, hang on 1 second. I'm trying to see when this Engine Kid record came out. 'Cause I know what record they were touring for.
Angel Wings.
No, it was the Bear Catching Fish. Came out in '93.
All right, so I would say that show was probably in '94, maybe.
Yeah, that'll be a safe bet. Jeff's gonna correct me anyway later. So
All right, yeah. he can do that. What's going on, everyone? This is episode 1 of Road to Ruin. And you might ask, what the hell is that? Well, if you have been listening to Metal Matters podcast for the last couple of years, you'll know that Randy... fucking cat. Let me hit this again.